Krishna, welcome to our Sunday Bhagavatam class. It is December 22nd, 3 days before Christmas, 2019. I'm still at the home of Sarvatma and Divyananda, who actually came back and somehow, for some strange reason, actually want their house back. So, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So today we begin with Canto 1, Chapter 4, Text 9, which is Abhimanyu Sutang Suta Prahur Bhagavatottamam Tasya Janma Mahascharya Karmani Cha Granihina. So Prabhupada translates that it is said that Maharaj Parikshit is a great first-class devotee of the Lord and that his birth and activities are all wonderful. Please tell us about him. And Prabhupada has a short purport. The birth of Maharaj Parikshit is wonderful because in the womb of his mother, he was protected by the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. His activities are also wonderful because he chastised Kali, who was attempting to kill a cow. To kill cows means to end human civilization. He wanted to protect the cow from being killed by the great representative of sin. His death is also wonderful because he got previous notice of his death, which is wonderful for any mortal being, and thus he prepared himself for passing away by sitting down on the bank of the Ganges and hearing the transcendental activities of the Lord. During all the days he heard Bhagavatam, he did not take food or drink, nor did he sleep a moment. So everything about him is wonderful, and his activities are worth hearing attentively. The desire is expressed herein to hear about him in detail. So, Abhimanyu Sutang Suta Prahur. So again, Prahur, they say, which means people that know, they say that Abhimanyu Sutang, that Abhimanyu's son, Parikshit, is Bhagavatottamam, is an Uttama Bhagavata, or a first-class devotee, a great devotee of the Lord. Tasya Janma, his birth, is Maha Ascharyam, is a great wonder. Prabhupada uses the word wonderful several times in the purport, and it comes from here, the Sanskrit. Ascharya means a wonder or wonderful. Actually, it means a wonder. In the Gita, Krishna says, Ascharyavat kastyachid bharatyena, that some people say the soul is amazing. Some people hear about the soul is amazing. That same word, Ascharya, or Ascharyavat, which means wonderful, and Ascharya means a wonder. So his birth is a great wonder. And of course, he was, Parikshit was in the womb of his mother, Uttara, and Ashwatthama threw a Brahmastra to destroy the dynasty. He was the last possible descendant of the great Pandava dynasty. And because his father had already been killed, Abhimanyu had already been killed. And so he was in the womb of his mother, who was a widow. And the 5 sleeping sons of the Pandavas had been killed, so this was it. If the dynasty was going to continue, it could only be through Parikshit, who was in the womb. And so Ashwatthama, sort of an evil character, wanted to kill that last descendant, kill an unborn child. And Krishna saved him. So his birth is a great wonder. Tasya Janma Maha Ascharyam Karmani Cha, and his activities, Granihinaha, tell us about them. So, we'll continue reading here. The next verse is Sasamrat Kasyavahito Pandunang Manavardana Prayopavishto Gangayam Anadrityadhirachyam. So that emperor, Samrat, like in Sankirtan, Sam means together or complete, And so a Raja, of course, the king, then Samrat means the king of everything, complete. So also emperor, as we call it, from the Latin imperatore, which was first applied to Augustus Caesar. Anyway, Sasamrat, so that emperor was Pandunang Manavardhana. Mana means prestige. Prestige. And so, as we say, and so Mani means one who has self-prestige, one who gives himself prestige, is Mani. That's why Lord Chaitanya said, Amanina Manadena, one who gives respect or prestige to others and does not take it for themselves, can chant Hare Krishna. So Vardhana, like Govardhana, Govardhan. Vardhana means growing or prospering. Vardhana. So Govardhana is the mountain that prospers the cows, that makes the cows prosper. Govardhana. And so here, Manavardhana, which means to increase, to cause to increase or to prosper. So the Pandavas are so famous, and yet Parikshit actually increased their prestige. I mean, that's not easy. The Pandavas were already the most famous Kshatriyas in the world, if not, the galaxy or whatever. And Parikshit actually increased their fame, their prestige. Pandunang Manavardhana. So with all these assets, considering he had this amazing, exalted position, so Kasyava Hetu, for what reason? For what reason? Prayopavisto Gangayam, he sat down on the Ganges fasting to death. That's called Prayopavista, where one just sits down like a yogi and just fasts until death. So Prayopavisto Gangayam on the Ganges, Anadritya, not considering or giving no importance to, Anadritya Adhirachriyam, the opulence of a great ruler. Just saying, why would he do that? Sasamrat Kasyavahito. For what reason did he do that? So we'll go to the next verse. Namanti, again glorifying Parikshit. Namanti jat padani ketam atmanah shivaya. For their own well-being. Haniya Dhanani Shatrava. His enemies, Parikshit was so powerful that for their own well-being, they would bring him riches and bow at his feet. So his enemies, I mean, there was no question of fighting him. That was not an option. So his enemies, in order to get the shelter of his feet, Niketa means like shelter, Jatpada Niketa, to get shelter for themselves, they brought tribute, riches, and bowed at his feet. That's how powerful he was. Namanti Jatpada Niketa Atmanak Shivaya Haniya Dhanani Shatrava Katang. So how? Katang Savira Shriyamanga Dustyajam Yuva Aishatot Srastu Maho Sahasubi. You can see this is very, very poetic language. And Shonika Rishi is actually one of the great poets of the Bhagavatam. I mean, there's none better. If you look at the verses, of course, this is Shonika inquiring of Sutta, and so Shonika is just a extraordinary poet. The Sanskrit he speaks, Shonika Rishi. So Parikshit had Shriyam, opulence, which was Dustyajam, hard to give up. Dur in Sanskrit, or dus here, phonetically is hard. In Spanish, you have duro, in Spanish or Portuguese or Italian. So Dustyajam, duro de renunciar. So Dustyajam, he had opulence, which was hard to give up. So how did he, or how did he come to desire Utsrashtum, just to cast it off, literally. How did he desire just to cast off this opulence, which is so hard to give up, and along with his own life? And in youth, he was still young. I mean, he was not an old man. He was not even middle-aged. He was still young. He had opulence that no one would give up. And so yet why did he choose to cast it off along with his own life? Sahasubi. Saha means together with, and asu is a synonym of prana, which can mean life, breath, or just life itself. Just like in the Gita, Krishna says, Gata sungsa, gata sungscha, that Nanu Shochanti Pandita, the wise do not lament for the living or the dead. So the word Krishna uses for the living or the dead is Gata Asu, one whose Asu is gone. There's one whose life, breath, or one whose life is gone, and Agatasu, one whose life is not gone. That's actually the word. So here's the same word, Asu. Yuvai Shitot Sastumaho Sahasubhi. Very poetic. And of course, it's Shonaka's magnificent Sanskrit. So then he says, Shivaya Lokasya, for the welfare of the world. Bhavaya, Bhutaye, for the prospering and flourishing of the world. Ja Uttama Shloka Parayana Jana, Jivanti. Janaha, people who are Uttama Shloka Parayana, who are fully dedicated to the Lord, Uttama Shloka, Krishna. People who are fully dedicated to the Lord, Jivanti, they live for the good of the world. They're not selfish. Not atma artam, not for their own sake. They don't live for their own sake. They live for the welfare and the prosperity and the good of the world. So, therefore, how is it that Aso, that king Parikshit, Mumocha Nirvidya Kuta Kalevaram, how did he give up his body? It's interesting, the word here for give up is mumocha, from the Sanskrit verb much, and that's where you get the word mukti or moksha. So what we call liberation is literally release. Like you let go of illusion, you let go of Maya. So that's what the word literally means, which is like liberation, becoming free of something. So mumocha, how did he, or why did he, nirvidya, not caring about it? It's interesting, nirvidya. It's like we say in English, I don't even want to know about it. Ni quiero saber. That's actually what this means. So vid is to know, like Veda, and nir is not. So didn't even want to know about it. In other words, not caring about it. He gave up his body, which was para ashram. It was the shelter. His body, because he was a king, was a shelter for other people. So why did he do that? It's very interesting because here stress that those people who are devoted to the Lord, they do not live for themselves. So we can all test ourselves, to what extent are we living for our own convenience? To what extent are we actually living to help others? So they don't live for themselves, but they live for the welfare, for the prosperity, for the good of the world. And so because Parikshit's body was shelter for others, why did he give it up? Why was he indifferent to it? Good questions, isn't it? These are very interesting questions. Then Tat Sarvang Nak Sama Chakshva, explain all of this to us. Explain all this to us, literally what it says. Tat Sarvang Nak Sama Chakshva, Prishto Jariha Kinchana, that which, all that we asked you here, or that I asked you. Manye Twang Vishaye Vachang Snatam Anyatra Chandasad. This is it. Very interesting verse. I consider you, literally, I consider you to be snatam, expert in the meaning of words or the meaning of statements, apart from technical Vedic hymns, Chandasa. It's interesting here, the word for which Prabhupada translates fully acquainted, snata, literally means bathed, like snana. Snana means a bath. And so it's interesting because in the Vedic culture, when after the successful completion of a great sacrifice, or after the student, the graduation, when you graduate, when you complete your studies so that you're now expert in some branch of Vedic knowledge, then there's a ritual bath that you take, almost like to cleanse yourself, sort of cast off all the impurities of ignorance, of not knowing, and so from that, the word snata, someone is bathed, means that someone has completed their studies. So that's the word that's used. It's interesting, little cultural item. So Tatsarvamak Samachakshva, explain all that to us. Prishto Jadiha Kinchana, whatever you were asked about here. Manye Twang, I consider you, Vishaye Vachang, in the meaning of Vedic statements, or the meaning of this knowledge, snatam, to be expert, that you've graduated, you've completed your studies and all this. Anyatra, although you're not that concerned with the Karma Kanda technical Vedas, the Vedic hymns. So, Sutta answers. Sutta Uvacha, Dwapare Samanuprapte, goes right into it, jumps right into it. It's interesting because often after, say, Shaunak will complete his question, Sutta will thank him, and then say a few words, he just dives right into it. He's anxious to get to it. So Sutta Uvacha, Dwapare Samanuprapte Tritiye Yuga Paryaye. When Dwapara Yuga arrived and replacing the Treta Yuga, Jatak Parasharad Yogi, a yogi, was born from Parashara, the great sage. Jatak Parasharad Yogi, a yogi, was born from Parashara, Vasavyang, and in Sanskrit, whenever it talks about someone's parents, like someone was born from, it always says born from the man in the woman. That's just grammatically how they always do it. From the man in the woman. So Jatat Parasharad Yogi was born from Parasharad in Vasavi, who we talked about last night, the daughter of King Vasu. So that actually confirms that although, this is of course the Satyavati, that although she was raised by a fishing family, which I hope to explain in the Mahabharata that I'm working on, why that happened, she's actually the daughter of the emperor, Vasu, who was the emperor of the world then, with his capital in Chedi. That's all described in the Shastra. So Vasavyam, in Vasavi, the daughter of Vasu, the yogi was born with directly a portion of the power of Hari. In other words, he's an avatar. Kalaya Hare, with a portion of Hari's own power. So now we're going to Vyasa. It's interesting, this is Parampara, because Shaunaka is asking Sutta, so Sutta is going back to Vyasa. Let's go back to the original source. Sakadachit Saraswatya Upasprisya Jalang Shuchi Vivikta Eka Asina Udite Ravi Mandale. So literally, poetically, not once upon a time, but that's kind of just like in English, you say once upon a time. In Sanskrit, kadachet, like once, Like, one time this happened. So kadachit, as the sun disk was rising, udite ravimandale, as the sun disk was rising, he was alone, asina, sitting in seclusion. It's emphasized that it said eka, which means one. So think in English, the word one, and then al, one, alone, all one, which we pronounce alone. But so eka in Sanskrit means one or alone. So vivikta, and vivikta means secluded and concentrated. So he's alone, he's secluded in concentration, and upasprisha jalang, and touching water. But the word sprisha could mean sprishwa, could mean touching. Upasprisha often means doing achman. In other words, he's ritually purifying himself for spiritual activities. So upasprisha jalang, touching water and being pure and fully concentrated, secluded in his mind, completely secluded, alone, sitting there as the sun disk is rising. And all this is taking place on the bank of the Saraswati River. Saraswatya. So Paravaragyak Sarishi. So he knew, it's translated here, Paravara, it's Para and Avara, which can mean the high and the low, the near and the far, or Prabhupada translates it here, the past and future. Paravara Gyaksa Rishi, that sage, knowing all these things. Kalena, by time, Avyakta Ranghasa, which is an invisible power. And as I've explained, I think it was in Phoenix, I explained many times, the word kala in Sanskrit doesn't just mean a way of measuring time, like hours and minutes, hourglass or clock. Basically, there's different ways of measuring time in this world, which are all based on observing the movements of physical objects, whether it's a clock hand or, the hour hand or the minute hand, or a digital clock, watching the movements of the numbers, or an hourglass, watching the movements of the sand going through an hourglass, or sundial, we watch the light and the shadow on a sundial. So it's interesting. I remember when I was at UCLA a long time ago, and I was in a class, and the professor was saying how Western philosophers have been trying for a very long time to understand what time is. They're still not sure, because it's a dimension, like things happen through time, things move through time, yet it's not space. Einstein, of course, said there's a space-time continuum, that somehow space and time are one medium. But in any case, the word for time in Sanskrit, as I've often explained, kala, comes from a Sanskrit root kal, which means to impel, to drive something forward. And so time is actually the power of God that drives things forward to their destiny. So when Krishna, in other words, you don't merely live through time. Time is directional. As you're moving through time, you are specifically being pushed in certain directions so that you can encounter your destiny, the destiny that you created. And so it's just like if someone jumps off a building and they fall, and they can't not fall, because they created a destiny. By jumping off a building, they created a destiny. By eating healthy food, you create a destiny. By eating unhealthy food, you create another destiny. And so when Krishna glances at the pradhana, which is the total material energy, there's no interaction. In the pradhana, it's just this total material energy, and they're not distinct divisions like fire, water, earth. So nothing burns, nothing moistens, nothing moves. It's just completely inert. And so when Krishna glances at the pradhana and activates it, Saikshata, like the Vedas say, he glanced. That glance is Kala Shakti, because Krishna glances at material nature and he impregnates he puts the souls back into material nature. And when he does that, because each conditioned soul has a destiny they have to fulfill, those destinies activate matter. So it's actually driving matter, and so that matter, so that fire burns and the wind blows and things happen. What actually drives matter is the destinies of the souls, because matter takes on different forms in order to fulfill those destinies. So therefore, the word for time, kala, is from the root, which means to drive something, impel something. And that's why Krishna defines time as a powerful force in the Gita. When Arjuna says, Ko Bhavan, who are you? In Sanskrit, Ko Bhavan, who are you? Ugra Rupa, in this frightening form, this terrible form. And Krishna says, Kalos me, time I am. Loka Kshaya Krit, destroyer of the world. In other words, time I am, measurer of time. Like, no, time is a destroyer, because time is driving everything to its end. So therefore here it said Kalena, by time, which is avyakta ranghasa, which is an invisible power. So Paravara Gyasa Rishi, that sage who knew the para and the avara, Yuga Dharma Bhyati Karang, he saw the anomalies. Things were getting in Yuga Dharma, that the Yuga Dharma was becoming all confused by the powerful force, the powerful invisible force of time. And that this praptam, this had occurred, it came to this, and that this actually occurs, bhuvi, on earth, yuge, in every age. So Bhyati Karam can also just mean that things are transferring or things are being transposed, so that the Yuga Dharma is becoming, Prabhupada says, anomalies. So maybe I'll stop here actually for now.
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead. We have a question here from Saravatma.
King Parikshit, at whose feet his enemies stood shelter and were afraid of, didn't hesitate to leave his citizens unprotected. Did he have because it wasn't like he had time to set up some kind of protective mechanism or air
backup.
Yeah.
Well, he did have a son who took over. He did have a powerful son who was Janamejaya. The question was that Parikshit lived for others, but he gave up his body, even though there was not a proper arrangement to replace him. But actually, he did have a powerful son. That was the point, Janamejaya, who did maintain the kingdom.
Yeah, but Janamejaya was obsessed with revenge.
No, he wasn't. Janamejaya was actually a very good ruler who maintained order. And then, as he became concerned with revenge when I think as Uttanka, a Brahmin, came to his court and said, why are you doing these sacrifices? Why are you wasting your time with this and you don't do your real duty? So he said that to the emperor. So Janamejaya, of course, immediately wanted to know why are you saying that? And he told him, this is how your father actually died. Now you have to get revenge. So he was a king. He was a great king who just, when he heard that, then he performed, a sacrifice, which ultimately was aborted. But it's not that he spent his whole life doing that. He was a great king. So I don't see any questions. Peanut Gallery. Okay, and I don't see any questions on Facebook. So thank you all very much for listening. And I hope I'll see you next Sunday. Hare Krishna.